mounting questions about Donald Trump's Wall Street trades, publicly boosting companies after their stocks were privately added to his stock portfolio. The latest revelation centers on UFC and a controversial UFC freedom fight that the president is apparently planning to host on the White House lawn. According to financial disclosures that are publicly available from the Office of Government Ethics and that were released in May, shares in TKO Holdings, the UFC's parent company, were added to Trump's portfolio back in March. Just a few weeks later, the president began promoting the UFC White House event and praising the UFC.
It's the hardest ticket. I have never been asked for people. Everybody wants. I'm going to make more enemies. And it's about 4,000 seats. It's all free. It's all free. It's really a contribution from UFC to 250. It was a great thing for UFC. Everything's beautiful. Everything's like money, money, money. And they're building a great arena.
It has also been reported that between $1 million and $5 million worth of Dell stock was added to Trump's stock portfolio in February. Trump publicly praised the company shortly after, encouraging his supporters to purchase Dell computers. Last week, after an announcement that the company, Dell, had secured a $9.7 billion Pentagon contract, Dell's stock surged. The president had this to say.
I also want to thank Michael and Susan Dell. Dell, go out and buy a Dell computer. They make a great product. They're not looking for any publicity. I give them publicity. They say, well, thank you very much.
And Dell, we want to get to, shares are higher after the Pentagon announced a $9.7 billion deal with the company to supply software to the military.
According to reports, in March, between $2 million and $7 million in Apple stock were purchased for Trump's portfolio. On the same day that one of those purchases occurred, Trump praised Apple. Take a listen.
Apple, a great company, $2.5 billion to manufacture 100% of the glass for iPhones and Apple Watches right here in Kentucky. New plants all over the United States. Think of that. Who the hell else could have done this? Nobody else. I say it kiddingly, but I'm actually not kidding. Nobody else could have. He's done a good job, Tim Cook.
Trump's portfolio also invested in a small medical supply company called Thermo Fisher, purchased $50,000 worth of stock on the same day that the president toured the company's facility.
It's a great honor being here. It's a great company. I've known it for a long time. And you have done a fantastic job. And I'd like to congratulate you. This incredible company. Congratulations. Great company.
Seems like a pattern emerging. Private stock purchases followed by very public statements boosting those same companies. The Trump Organization says in a statement, quote, neither President Trump, his family, nor the Trump Organization has any role in selecting, directing, approving, influencing, or soliciting specific investments. They receive no advance notice of trades. Joining me now to discuss is David Cay Johnston, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and Trump biographer. He is now a professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology. David, what's your take on these stock trades?
Well, they're completely atrocious, but unfortunately, the founders and the framers of our Constitution didn't think that we would have a president like Donald Trump. So the emoluments clauses as written only apply to foreign governments and state and local governments, certainly not to stock trading. And the assertion by both the Trump family and the White House that there's nothing going on here is nonsense. All you have to do is have advanced knowledge of where Donald's going to speak and whether it's going to be positive or negative, and trades can be made that will turn out to be very profitable.
Mm-hmm. So the Trump Organization is saying that the president has nothing to do with these trades, but we know that for years, the president and his family have not operated with a blind trust. That is what some presidents have done in the past with their holdings. What's your response to the organization's disclaiming that there's anything to see here?
Well, Donald believes that there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, the almost 40 years I've known and covered him, it's always been clear that he does not believe rules apply to him because he's special. And so he said before his first term that he could run his companies and run the White House and there'd be no conflicts of interest. Clearly, there are massive conflicts of interest, particularly where the Pentagon, under some pressure apparently from the White House based on reporting, gave loan guarantees and loans to companies that Don Jr. invested in. But to Donald, there's just nothing wrong with this. And unfortunately, we're not seeing any oversight by Congress because the leaders of the Republican Party on Capitol Hill simply will not hold Trump to account.
Well, you've anticipated my next question. This is not just a problem for Donald Trump. There has also been reporting about members of Congress who have made some questionable trades in advance of shifting world events. If the Democrats are able to take back power, at least in some portions of the Congress, could they begin investigating this? Or is there even a pathway forward to truly transformative legislation that would put an end to this?
Well, there will certainly be investigations if the Democrats get control of either the House or the Senate. There is such a rich environment to investigate that they're going to have to make choices about what they can pursue and what they won't pursue. When and if we get past Trump's dictatorship, we need to do some serious work about the presidency because we can no longer assume that honorable men or women will hold that office. And yet that was the core of the framers' belief. They did provide for impeachment because there's always a personal venality, but what's going on with Trump goes way beyond this. And we need to take a deep look at fundamentally reforming certain parts of the Constitution, including the emoluments clauses, and providing a cause of action. You'll recall when there were lawsuits brought by individuals and state attorneys general, the federal courts on the emoluments issue basically washed their hands of it. We could have a statute that says if, for example, 10 state attorneys general join in a case, they automatically have standing against an action of a president.
So before we end this segment, I want to just talk about one more thing. The ProPublica is reporting that the White House intervened to get a company that was affiliated with Donald Trump Jr. You just talked about this, a $620 million. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to talk about that $620 million government contract that was secured for a company in which Donald Trump Jr. had associations. The Trumps deny any wrongdoing with that. What do you make of that story? And while we're talking about congressional reform, how far should it reach? Is it just elected officials, or should we also be thinking about how to limit those who are close to the president, but not necessarily public servants?
Well, I think we need to have a very robust debate about investments by elected members of Congress, key staff members, justices of the United States Supreme Court, and other officials. I think we should look to the model of Jimmy Carter, who took his little 2-bit peanut warehouse business of no consequence to anything and put it in a trust, and then it was sold so that there'd be no question that he was taking any actions